You are the lowest of the low in this 7-member family. If you disobey, get a divorce. My mother-in-law Heather, who had come to live with us under false pretenses due to certain circumstances, said this to me. I see. So her real family consisted of her son Steve, his wife, my mother-in-law, and 2 children. If my husband Tom and I were to join them, it would indeed be a 7-person family. But by saying lowest of the low, she clearly had no intention of accepting me as a true member of the family from the start. It was as if she intended to use me as a convenient scapegoat or something. Fine, I'll get a divorce. My resolute voice echoed through the living room. Tom, who was helping with the moving preparations, and my mother-in-law stopped what they were doing upon hearing my response. Heather, I heard all your bad deeds from your daughter-in-law, Erica. Heather turned pale, and Tom looked puzzled. What's going on? My name is Alice Miller. I am 28 years old, and I work for a foreign cosmetics company. I'm just an ordinary woman. I had just married my husband Tom, who is 3 years older than me, 6 months ago. We were newlyweds. Tom works in the sales department of a major domestic manufacturer and brings in huge contracts every day. He's a real cash cow for the company. Tom often wins top sales awards several times a year. The company makes sure to reward him with special perks to keep him happy. One of the best perks is a trip. If he achieves top sales for 3 consecutive months, the company gives him an all-expenses-paid trip for 2. However, even Tom can't maintain top sales for 3 straight months very often, so we usually only get to take 1 or 2 trips a year. I had been going on these trips with Tom even before we got married, and we continued to do so after our wedding. That was a fun 3-day trip to Hawaii. It's finally over. After a short flight from Hawaii, my husband and I landed at Los Angeles International Airport. We decided to grab some tasty American food inside the airport. We rolled our suitcases as we entered a diner. After wiping our hands with a napkin and sipping some iced tea, we ordered a burger and fries. I leaned back in my seat and stretched my arms. It felt good to loosen the stiff muscles from the flight. As we enjoyed the diner's atmosphere, our order arrived. Alice, I know you don't like pickles. I'll trade you my onion rings for your pickles. Tom immediately swapped my unwanted topping for his. He has always been so considerate of me, even when we were dating. He really is the most wonderful husband in the world. I couldn't help but feel happy. This is delicious. It's so much better than the food we had at the Honolulu airport. Tom nodded in agreement. Even though there are a lot of Americans in Hawaii, it's still a part of America. It's hard to find authentic American food there. Their tastes are just different from ours. We chatted about simple things as we finished our meal and took a shuttle bus to the train station near our house. Looking out the window at the passing scenery, I felt a little sad that we were returning to our everyday lives. Don't worry, Alice. I'll be number 1 again for 3 months in a row. Then we can go to Hawaii again. Tom, I appreciate your enthusiasm. Please don't push yourself too hard. It won't be worth it if you get sick. I became concerned and rested my head on Tom's shoulder. Alice, you can rely on me more. You could even quit your job and become a full-time housewife. Tom had mentioned before that he wanted me to be a full-time housewife so that I could greet him with a welcome home when he returned from work. His mother, my mother-in-law Heather, had been a full-time housewife and had always welcomed Tom and his brother home. I'd like to keep working for now. I want to earn my own money to spend. Plus, we need to save for a down payment on a house. Tom looked a little disappointed. As we talked, the bus arrived at our stop, and we got off with our luggage. When we arrived at the entrance of our apartment building, Tom suddenly said, Hey, isn't that Mom? I saw an older woman lingering in front of the entrance, but I wasn't close enough to Heather to recognize her from a distance. I had only met her at our wedding 6 months prior. I couldn't tell if the woman in front of the apartment building was the same person I met at the wedding. Tom, I'm sorry, I can't tell if it's your mom. Why don't you go over and say hi? Okay, I will. Tom placed his suitcase next to mine and hurried over to the woman. Mom, it is you. Alice, it's Mom. Let's go home. At that moment, I had no idea that I was about to enter a living nightmare. If I had known, I would have turned back time and sent Heather away no matter what. Heather was in tears. She didn't explain why she was crying, but it was clear she wanted to talk and have someone listen to her. "Mom, please don't cry so much. Let's go inside and talk." "Thank you. Thank you for your kindness, Tom." Then Heather looked at me. She seemed to be asking if it was okay for her to come in. I nodded in agreement with Tom. "Heather, please come in. We can't offer you much, but please tell us what's wrong." "Thank you, Alice. Then I'll take you up on your offer." Tom unlocked the apartment door and went inside first. He prepared slippers for his mother. Heather went inside, put on the slippers, and followed Tom into the living room. I placed our luggage in the bedroom and went to the kitchen to make tea. "Alice, I would like some matcha tea." "I'm sorry, we don't have any fancy tea like that." Heather had followed me into the kitchen and was looking over my shoulder. When I told her we didn't have matcha, her eyes narrowed instantly. "Well, I never. Not having guest-quality matcha on hand. What kind of hostess are you?" Her expression was truly fierce. I instinctively backed away from her. "What's all the commotion?" "Mom, please don't just wander off from the living room." It seemed Heather had taken advantage of Tom going to the bathroom to sneak into the kitchen. "Oh, Tom, I'm so sorry. I was just having a little chat with Alice. It's been ages since our last proper meeting at the wedding." "Alice, yes?" Yes, that's right." Ignoring my hesitant response, Tom led his mother back into the living room. I finally poured the boiling water into teacups and replayed Heather's earlier words in my mind. "What kind of hostess are you?" She had said it with such a harsh, accusatory tone. This is not good. I wish she would just go home. I couldn't help but think to myself. I placed the tea in front of Heather and Tom and set my own cup down as well. Tom and I sat side by side, with Heather across from us. "Mom, what brings you here today?" "Well, it's about Steve." Tears welled up in Heather's eyes as she told us that Steve, Tom's older brother, had told her that he couldn't take care of her anymore, and that she had to leave. "He told you to leave? Steve did?" "I find that hard to believe. Why?" I asked Tom, genuinely curious. "Steve has always been more devoted to Mom than I am. That's why I felt comfortable leaving her in his care." Heather finally let the tears fall, and I quickly offered her a tissue. "Thank you, Alice. Anyway, Tom, I know this is a lot to ask, but would it be possible for me to stay here until I find a new place?" "Alice, what do you think? Is that all right with you?" Tom looked at me, waiting for my response. If I said no, I was afraid of Heather's wrath. It seemed better to agree for now and endure a temporary period of cohabitation. "All right, Tom. Heather, please try to find a new place as soon as possible." "What are you saying, you witch?" Heather stood up abruptly, glaring at me. It seemed no matter what I did, I would be called a witch. I couldn't hide my disappointment. "Don't you dare talk about abandoning a helpless parent. Understand? I'm family now. Since you're part of the family, you should take care of me, your mother-in-law." Even Tom, her own son, looked surprised. "Mom, please calm down. Alice isn't a witch. Alice, say something." I thought about who was in the most difficult position. I realized it was Tom, caught between us. "Heather, I apologize if my words were inadequate. Please try to calm down." Perhaps appeased by my humility, she huffed and sat back down on the sofa. "Very well, Alice. Your words were careless, but I appreciate your willingness to apologize." Heather blew her nose loudly into a tissue and then placed it on the table instead of throwing it away. "Heather, please don't put used tissues on the table. It's unsanitary." I blurted out. I immediately wondered if saying unsanitary was too harsh, but it was the truth. "What do you mean by unsanitary? I'm family. I can use this table however I want." Heather clenched her fists in her lap. I quickly stood up, picked up the tissue by the corner, and threw it in the trash. Not wanting this to happen again, I placed the trash can next to her. "Alice, what are you doing? Placing the trash can next to me? What are you trying to make me do?" Tom, who had been silent until then, finally spoke. "Mom, when my brother and I were kids, You used to scold us if we left used tissues on the table. You told us to throw them in the trash because it was unsanitary. So, you still hold a grudge about something that happened so long ago. It's not about holding a grudge. It's common courtesy. Even if you're living with us, you need to follow basic manners. Do you understand, Mom? Heather didn't say anything else. Tom and I exchanged worried glances. Would this cohabitation really work out? At least for now, Tom was on my side, but would that continue? My feelings were complicated, and I felt a deep unease about the unpredictable future. After spending a night at our apartment, Heather began to show her true colors. She immediately started complaining about our morning routine, especially the fact that Tom and I usually just had coffee and skipped breakfast. She burst into the kitchen at 5 a.m, yelling at me, "Alice, you're not feeding Tom breakfast? The breadwinner of this family?" Of course, Tom didn't even get a chance to explain that he doesn't usually eat breakfast. "I've been up since 5 waiting for breakfast. I'm starving. I want a proper breakfast. Eggs Benedict and a side of fruit, please." I wondered if that was really the way to ask someone for a favor, but I kept my mouth shut. "I'm so sorry, Heather, but we don't have all the ingredients to make Eggs Benedict. We have some leftovers in the fridge." If she had told me about her request yesterday, I could have gone grocery shopping. I bit my lip in frustration. "Leftovers? What are you trying to feed me? Your mother-in-law? Do you think I'm some kind of garbage disposal?" Heather erupted in anger. I was helpless. All I could do was lower my head and wait for her rage to subside. "Mom, please stop yelling so early in the morning. You're going to disturb the neighbors." Tom, awakened by the commotion in the kitchen, told his mother in a sleepy voice. "Oh, Tom, are you taking Alice's side?" Just then, the intercom rang. I gratefully left Tom to deal with his mother and went to answer the door. It was the couple from next door. They had come to complain about Heather shouting, which had been disturbing them since yesterday. I apologized profusely and promised to keep things quiet. I went back and told Tom about the complaint. "Mom, please stop yelling. You've only ever lived in a house, so you probably don't realize this. But in an apartment building, you have to be considerate of the neighbors. Do you understand?" "Yes, I understand. But am I really the only one to blame?" Heather looked down. Tom questioned her. "I don't get angry for no reason. You know that, Tom." Tom reluctantly nodded in agreement. "I have a reason to be angry, and it's because of Alice. Since yesterday, she's been telling me not to put used tissues on the table, and this morning she didn't even have breakfast ready. She tried to feed me leftovers." Heather insisted that I was the cause of her anger. "Alice, do you have anything to say to that?" Tom's voice had lost its usual gentleness. It had become slightly sharp. "I apologized for the leftovers. We just didn't have the ingredients for a full breakfast, so I offered what we had. I didn't mean to offend you, that's all." "Mom, Alice, I want you two to get along. Mom, if we get another complaint from the neighbors, we won't be able to have you here anymore. Do you understand?" "Yes, I understand." Heather, who had been so overbearing in front of me, became meek in front of her own son. One day, when I returned home from work, Heather was in the kitchen doing something. Tom hadn't come home yet. I had to be careful not to anger Heather. "I'm home." "Heather, what are you doing?" When I spoke to her from behind, she turned around with a fierce look. "This kitchen is filthy. There's grime stuck to the sink. It won't come off with just a little scrubbing. Look how awful it is." Heather moved aside, and I saw the sink. I turned pale. "Heather, that's not grime. It's the original coating. It's supposed to be a slightly brownish color. You've scratched it off." Heather put a finger to her lips, telling me to be quiet. "Keep your voice down, or the neighbors will complain again. Then Tom will kick me out of this apartment. And I just found this new place." "New place? What do you mean by that?" I had a terrible feeling. It felt like I was facing a huge problem that I couldn't solve on my own. "Well, I was hoping you and Tom would let me stay here permanently. As long as I keep quiet, it should be fine, right?" No way. I felt a shock, as if I had been plunged into the deepest darkness. The shock was so intense that I was speechless. Yes, you can pay for the sink repair. Since you became family when you married Tom, any family expenses should be shared. I was so shocked that I ran into the bedroom and collapsed onto the bed. I never agreed to live with her permanently. I had to talk to Tom. I had to firmly refuse to live with his mother. However, Tom not only didn't refuse the idea of living with his mother, but he was also overjoyed. "Mom's going to live with us." "Of course I'm thrilled. Right, Alice?" However, our apartment was too small for 3 people, and I was worried about what Heather might do, like the sink incident. But I couldn't express my concerns to Tom. Was it because I was the daughter-in-law and couldn't say such things? Or was it because I was disappointed in Tom's attitude? I didn't know. Our apartment was a small 2-bedroom. Heather was assigned the smaller room that we had been using for storage. It might be tolerable for a short period, but it would be difficult long term. "I'll take care of the sink. Don't worry about it, Alice." "Mom, please don't do anything like that again." "Of course not. Thank you, Tom." "Alice, since Mom's going to be living with us, should we consider moving to a bigger place?" My eyes widened. Did he just say move? Moving would be a huge expense. Weren't we trying to save money? We were saving every penny for a down payment on a house in a few years. "Wait, Tom. That money is for our future house." "I know, but Mom needs a place to stay right now. As her son, I want to provide that for her." I suddenly wondered why Heather had been kicked out of Steve's house in the first place. Tom probably didn't know the reason either. If he had known, he would have told me by now. "Alice, what's wrong?" Tom looked at me, concerned because I had become completely silent. "Oh, I'm sorry." I tried to subtly express my reluctance about living with her, but Heather became furious. "If you hate me that much, then you should be the one to leave this apartment. Tom is my son. He has an obligation to take care of me, but you're just an outsider. You're nothing but a nuisance." Hearing her words, Tom sighed deeply. He picked up my purse from the dining chair and thrust it towards me. "Alice, I know Mom went too far. I'm sorry. But you're not entirely blameless either." What did I do wrong? I couldn't understand Tom's logic. His mother had moved in uninvited, yet he was defending her just because she was his mother. "Go outside and cool off," he told me. I accepted the purse, and without looking back at them, left the apartment and went to a nearby park. The park, usually filled with children during the day, was quiet and empty at night. I sat on the swing, thinking about my parents back home. "Mom, Dad, I don't know what to do. I don't understand Tom." Tom had apologized to me, so he must have known that his mother was at fault. But telling me to cool off felt wrong. But maybe what Tom said was right. Anyone would want to help their parents if they were in trouble. If my mother asked to live with me, I would try to convince Tom to agree. I loved Tom. I loved him very much. Maybe I should just accept the situation, I thought, even though I knew the decision would cast a dark shadow over my heart. I decided that I should accept the cohabitation. I returned home from the park. I could hear Tom and Heather talking in the living room, but I ignored them and went to take a shower. Hearing the noise, Heather came to the bathroom, bringing me a towel and a change of clothes. "Alice, a shower isn't enough to warm me up. I want a bath with pine-scented bath salts." "Pine-scented? We usually just take showers, so we don't have any bath salts." "I thought so. You really don't put in any effort, do you? The drugstore is still open. Go buy some." She didn't yell, but her tone was demanding. I went to Tom, who was relaxing in the living room, to talk to him about it. "A pine bath sounds nice. We should take baths more often." "Tom, are you serious? You want a pine bath?" "We always just take showers. Since we have a bathtub, we should use it." Heather nodded in satisfaction at Tom's words, and I looked down in frustration. "All right, I'll go buy some bath salts." "Thanks." I ran to the nearby drugstore, bought the pine bath salts, and also bought some instant miso soup for Heather's breakfast the next day. I cleaned the bathtub, filled it with water, and added the bath salts. Then I went to tell Heather that the bath was ready. Alice, you want me to take the first bath? Heather's expression turned sour. Is something wrong? Heather sighed dramatically. A young bride like you should know better. The first bath is dangerous for elderly people. It's too cold, and it could cause hypothermia. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, you do now. It's common knowledge. Heather insisted on Tom taking the first bath. It was already past 9 p.m., and Tom was in the middle of watching his favorite TV show. He usually took a bath after 10 p.m. It's already 10 o'clock. It's way past my bedtime. Do you understand how unreasonable you're being? Tom sighed, took the remote, recorded the rest of his show, and got up from the couch. Okay, Mom, I'll go take a bath, he said, picking up a towel, some underwear, and a change of clothes. He then headed towards the bathroom. Tom is such a sweet and obedient son. You don't deserve him, Alice. My life had completely lost its color. Everything I saw was tinged with sepia. Heather's voice echoed in my head. I couldn't even concentrate at work. My once hopeful days had vanished. Heather, seemingly having learned her lesson from the sink incident, stopped going into the kitchen. Instead, she made me do all the work. I had to wake up at 5 a.m., just like her, to make her a full breakfast and prepare 3 lunch boxes. Tom and I had never packed lunches before. We usually just ate or grabbed something quick. But Heather had declared, people who are saving up for a house shouldn't be so extravagant. So we started packing our lunches. This wasn't how things were supposed to be. I could only sigh as I ate my homemade lunch. The only place where I could escape Heather's constant nagging was work. It had become my only sanctuary. It was ironic. If only I hadn't encouraged Tom to talk to that woman in front of the apartment building that day we got back from Hawaii, I thought to myself. I felt foolish for making that choice. One night, Tom was working late, and I was resting in the bedroom because I wasn't feeling well. I could hear Heather's voice from the next room. She was on the phone with someone. Only her side of the conversation was audible. Yes, he's here. About moving back to the family home. Be sure not to tell Alice. She'll make a fuss. I promise. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They were planning something behind my back. My trust in Tom shattered. I couldn't believe anything anymore. About a month passed like this. One day, Heather surprised me by saying she wanted to talk. Tom and I sat down in front of her. Actually, I got a call from Steve last night. He wants me to come back. Steve does? Tom's eyes widened. He seemed genuinely surprised. Yes, I was shocked too. I thought to myself how convenient this was. We all sat in silence for a moment. Then I heard my phone ringing in the bedroom. It rang a few times, then stopped, then started again. I had a bad feeling. Ignoring Heather's protests, I ran to the bedroom, closed the door, and locked it. Hello? I answered the phone, a little out of breath. Hello, Alice? It's Erica. Erica? It's been so long. Erica is Tom's sister-in-law, Steve's wife. She's like a sister to me. We exchanged numbers at my wedding reception and kept in touch. Erica never talked about family matters with me, so I didn't know what she thought of Heather. Alice, is Heather there? She's been living with us. I was happy to hear from Erica, but I was also afraid of saying something bad about Heather. I almost hung up. But then, Erica told me something shocking. Alice, did you and Tom ever ask Heather why Steve kicked her out? I've been wondering about that, but Tom never asked her, so I didn't either. Listen carefully. Heather has a spending problem. A spending problem? Yes. She buys expensive things that we can't afford. She got us into serious debt. That's why Steve told her to leave. I felt like I had been slapped in the face, and was shocked and disturbed by what Erica told me. I went back to the living room, where Tom was unplugging the TV cables. Heather was packing her belongings into boxes. What are you two doing? Tom jumped and turned around. It's not what it looks like, Alice. Heather didn't even acknowledge me. You will be the lowest in this family. If you disobey, I will make you get a divorce. I repeated her earlier words. Heather stopped packing. Heather, I heard everything from Erica. You were targeted by a scam and bought expensive things. That's why you were kicked out. But Steve felt bad and looked for you. He couldn't find you, and then you contacted him saying you would stay with us. And then Steve told Erica that they decided to wait until things calmed down. The phone call from Steve was just a coincidence. You two were planning to move back without telling me, weren't you? Tom turned pale, and Heather looked away. Heather, why did you want us to move in with you? You were going to use me and Tom for money. You wanted to buy even more things. Alice, you were working with Erica. You and that witch are trying to get rid of me. Erica is not like that. She cares about you. Maybe, but I'm scared of her. Heather was afraid of Erica. Erica always scolded her. She was taking her frustration out on me. Tom, when are the movers coming? Tom looked up. In 2 hours. Tom, let's get a divorce. Tom was shocked. Alice, you're joking, right? You're just angry about the move. If we live at my parents' house, you can spend time with Erica. Isn't that what you want? It was a tempting offer, but this was different. Let's get a divorce, Tom. I can't live with Heather. Even though I understand she raised you and she's important to you, I can't live with her. I would end up hurting her. And I could never forgive myself for that. So please, my belongings can stay here, but... Tom still didn't want to get a divorce. He rushed to my side. Alice? Heather interrupted him. If you're a man, stick to your decisions. You decided to live with me at the family home. Then break up with Alice. But Mom, about Alice. Don't make excuses. If you get a divorce, I'll be happy. Besides, that girl is connected to Erica. She's a dangerous woman. We're better off without her. I felt a pang of sadness, but I decided to tell Heather the message Erica had entrusted to me. I took my phone out of my pocket and played the last 2 minutes of the recorded conversation on speakerphone. Heather, it's been a while. The loan is settled, so please come home safely. I've been airing out your room every day, so it shouldn't be dusty. And today we have a special treat. I've prepared a delicious Thanksgiving dinner for you. Come home soon and enjoy it. Heather started crying as soon as she heard the recording. She collapsed to her knees. Heather, how can you call Erica a witch? She cares about you so much. She's so understanding. It's cruel to call her a witch. Erica, why didn't she tell me directly? I realized how easily misunderstandings could happen. I looked at Heather, who had collapsed on the floor with mixed emotions. Tom, I'll mail the divorce papers to your family home later. It hasn't even been a year since we got married, but thank you for everything. Alice, wait. The situation. No one can make a rational decision right now. We don't even have a reason to get a divorce. We do have a reason. I kept my voice calm. You've been saying you're busy lately, but you've been calling Heather late at night from somewhere other than home. You were planning this move. It was a weak excuse, but I continued. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I could hear Heather's voice from the bedroom. That's when I realized. You're on your mother's side, not mine. It's not me and Erica who are ganging up on her. It's you and your mother who are ganging up on me. Alice, that's not true. Ugh. Tom was at a loss for words. It's irreparable. Tom, we should get a divorce. My love for Tom hadn't completely disappeared, but I had learned about his strong dependence on his mother over the past month, and now I knew I couldn't ignore it. That's why I suggested divorce. You said it yourself before we got married. You promised we would never live with your parents. But if we live at my parents' house, we can save money quickly. We can buy our own house sooner. Our own house? I'm glad I'm getting a divorce before we buy a house. My words sealed our fate. Tom and I were going to get a divorce. 2 hours later, the movers arrived. I gave them instructions. They loaded all of Tom's belongings, including the furniture, onto the truck. The truck then left for his family home. Heather and Tom were left behind. I forced a smile and held out my hand to Tom. Thank you for everything, Tom. Good luck with your work. Tom looked dejected and shook my hand. You take care of yourself, too. He clearly wasn't happy about the divorce, but eventually he would realize his dependence on his mother. And I didn't need to be the one by his side when that happened. Several months passed. My divorce from Tom was finalized. The money we had saved for a house was split equally and deposited into my account. Tom, however, hadn't given up on getting back together. He called me frequently. I still had feelings for him, so I ended up answering the phone. Hello? Hey, Alice, how are you doing? I'm fine, thanks. How's living at home? We had the same polite conversation many times, but this time, something was different. I could hear a lot of noise in the background. Heather, are you looking at those catalogs again? I'm taking those. I heard Erica's voice followed by the sound of something being snatched away. Wait a minute. You can just look. You haven't forgotten how much debt you put us into, have you? You should stay in your room. Behave yourself. Okay. Erica is so stingy. Heather, who'd been so high and mighty with me, was completely under Erica's thumb. Tom, what was that? Erica just took the catalogs away from Mom. You're probably better off not being here, Tom said sadly. Why do you say that? Mom can't argue with Erica. She was trying to use you. She told me that before we got divorced. So our divorce was the right thing to do. It was my fault. Tom regretted choosing his mother over me. I see. Tom, I'm moving to the Japanese headquarters next month. To Japan? Why so far away? I had planned this for a long time. Even if I hadn't divorced Tom, I would have pursued this opportunity. I negotiated with my boss and passed the difficult internal exams. I was ready for this new chapter in my life. So I won't be able to see you easily anymore. Tom's voice was darker than I'd ever heard it. We haven't been seeing each other easily lately anyway. You're always busy. I know, but it means we won't even be able to talk on the phone as much. That's true. There was a huge difference between Japan and American calling time. It would be difficult to find time to talk unless one of us made a huge effort. But that's okay, because I know something. What do you know? I know that you've been secretly buying things for your mother, even though Erica told you not to. Erica had found out about this soon after Tom moved back in. Packages had been arriving for Heather, and she would happily take them to the family home. Heather's true motive for wanting to live with us had been our money. She also wanted to take her frustration out on me and make me a scapegoat for her anger towards Erica. I won't do it anymore, I promise. My ex-husband pleaded with me to reconsider. I abruptly hung up the phone and looked up at the night sky. I was right to leave. It would have only caused me more stress. I almost became a target for Heather's stress and her spending habits. I was able to avoid all of that because of the divorce. A few days later, Erica visited me for the first time. We usually met outside, so I cleaned my apartment and waited for her. Alice, seeing your apartment makes it really feel like you and Tom are over. I know. I still get called Mrs. Miller at work. Erica was tall and slender, like a model. I secretly admired her. I also admired her strength in dealing with Heather. I served homemade scones with clotted cream and royal milk tea. Thank you, Alice. About what I told you before? Tom got another trip to Hawaii from his company, and Heather insisted on going with him. Tom had taken his mother to Hawaii, but they didn't enjoy the trip at all. The food was terrible. They couldn't swim in the ocean, and not many people spoke Japanese. Of course, Hawaii is a part of America. Even though there are many tourists, you can't expect everyone to speak Japanese. I had always been their translator. I worked for a foreign company and was preparing to move back to Japan. You knew about the trip to America? Yes. Heather is sad. I hope she can find something to keep her busy. I enjoyed talking to Erica, but I noticed that she was talking about family matters more than usual. I decided to ask her about it. I think I've changed, too. I worried a lot about my relationship with Heather while she was here. I understand Heather. She's similar to my own mother. She's selfish, but also timid and lonely. If my mother was still alive, she would probably be just like Heather. It's tough love. I finally understood. Erica saw her own mother in Heather. Alice, to be honest, I think Tom wants to get back together with you. How do you feel? If you still have feelings for him, you should tell him before you move to Japan. I felt a little awkward and took a bite of my scone. I don't dislike Tom, but I'm not sure how I feel. Maybe if he wasn't so attached to his mother? If he keeps saying that, someone else will snatch him up. He's a top salesman, you know. Then that's okay. I enjoy talking to you and my colleagues at work. I'm also excited about my new life in Japan. Erica smiled warmly and nodded in agreement. I'll always support you, Alice. Thank you, Erica.